Embrace HIPMAT. Embrace its academic and professional reputation that has trained over 15,000 professionals in 10 years. Embrace HIPMAT's numerous professional programs from HND to BTech, BSc, and MBA in the schools of Business and Management Sciences, Engineering and Technology, and the School of Transport and Logistics. Embrace HIPMAT's professionalism, excellence, and consistency with solid mentorship from the University of Bamenda and the University of Boya. Embrace HIPMAT's skills, development, expertise, and career orientation via workshops and academic field trips. Be part of the HIPMAT family. Visit our Boya campus at Checkpoint Moliko and Douala campus at Carrefour Yoro, Jos, Bonamusali. Contact 683-70-1720. The Higher Institute of Business Management and Technology, the University Institute for Professionals.
Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This evening, we are going to be looking at the role that the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation can play in bringing peace and justice to the troubled southwest and northwest regions. We are talking about the Anglophone crisis. Once again, this evening, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation has been multiplying efforts aimed at taming the fire that is burning in these two regions. This evening, they are going to be telling us alongside our panelists what route they think the coalition can follow to ensure that things come back to normalcy in these two regions. We are in the company of Apostle Lambe Valentine Gwa. He is our consultant, and in the studio with us. Good evening, Apostle Lambe, and welcome.
In the southwest.
We also in the company of Barrister Jean-Claude Abihiga, who is representing the CPDM party on this platform. Good evening and welcome.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Je m'appelle Joseph Claude et non Jean-Claude. Je suis heureux de venir pour la première fois dans vos studios et pour représenter le parti. Oui. Le thème qui nous interpelle, qui est à l'ordre aujourd'hui, nous interpelle tous, celui de la paix. Nous devons tous concourir à ce que la paix revienne dans notre pays.
Okay. We also are going to be discussing with Professor Lilian Atanga. She is a professor at the University of Florida, steering committee member of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Good evening and welcome, Professor.
Good evening, Mr. Kuman. Thank you for bringing me here.
How is Florida this evening? I don't know, it's not evening that way.
Bright, very hot, and beautiful, of course.
Okay. We also are going to be discussing with Mr. Mike Senze. He is a corporate lawyer and intellectual property consultant and member of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Good evening, Mr. Senze. If you were in Cameroon, I will call you Barrister.
Mr. Kuhn, it's a pleasure to be on your show. Appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to an informative discussion with the other panelists, some who are very familiar to us. And again, just grateful to be on the show to be able to talk about the issues that are of concern to our people. So thank you very much.
Mr. Senze, I'm starting the program with you. The coalition, we are looking at the role that the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation can play to ensure that peace and justice is seen as being done in these two conflict-stricken regions of the southwest and northwest regions. Do you think the coalition has what it takes to bring peace and justice to exist in these two regions?
Absolutely, and you know, I provide this answer based on, again, some of the assessments that we've done. We have spent a lot of time trying to understand this crisis, trying to understand the root causes, looking at some of the initiatives that have taken place over the years, and it is based on that assessment that we've come up with a range of options. So again, in terms of what the CDN is focused on, we are trying to make sure we have a range of options, but at the end of the day, we also believe that it will be up to the people to make a decision around, where they want to go, what is of importance to them. And again, we're also working with a lot of our, strategic partners to make sure that we have the right level of support as we work from where we are to where we ought to be, and again, looking beyond that. So that's really the perspective from the CDN.
Yeah, you say the CDN can deliver. What does the CDN has that can push your dream through? What is it that you possess that others don't?
Well, it's not really a question of what the CDN possesses. It's a question of what the CDN is focused on. Okay. Now, we are in a current situation today that is a situation of crisis. It is a situation of war. There are different dynamics that do impact that. But to get to a solution, there has to be a shift from the problem to the solution. And where the CDN can help a lot is really because our focus is primarily on the most critical resource that we have as Southern Cameroonians. And that is really what we call the intellectual capital of our people. Now, we have a range of experts who are looking at this problem across a lot of different facets. It's a fairly complicated problem. It's going to require a range of innovative solutions as well as mechanisms that need to be put in place to ensure that those outcomes are realized. So it's really that long view that the CDN is taking to ensure that we're not just looking at the now, we're looking at the critical processes that need to be followed in order to get us out of where we are and looking beyond that to where we ought to go.
Professor Lilian Atanga, you have been, you are a member of the steering committee. Can you bring us, can you actually tell our televiewers where the CDN is coming from and where it is today as far as this crisis is concerned?
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. The Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation is a fairly young organization, and it was formed after the crisis, not before the crisis. Okay. And it is made up of professionals, Southern Cameroonian professionals, who noted that there is a gap in the solution of the crisis, and they came together with very specific objectives as professionals to solve the conflict. Some of these objectives include bringing the conflict to a negotiated, mediated settlement. Because they are a group who are bridging the gap between Southern Cameroonians and looking forward to a negotiated settlement. They bring along different kinds of tools, as Mr. Sensei has indicated, which are largely intellectual. And these will bring, looking to bringing the different entities, the different groups of the Southern Cameroonians together as a single entity, such that a negotiation can take place, such that whoever is coming to negotiate with the South Cameroonians will have a unified team to talk to, because the excuse has always been there is no one to talk to, and we are looking into that aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, but Professor, severally your efforts have been described by a group of persons as working for the government. Some people will still not trust. Are you doubling efforts to make them see reasons with you people?
We are not working for the government. We are not working for anybody. We are working for the people of the Southern Cameroon. We could be accused as being pro-government or pro-separatists. But we are neither of them, because we stand as those looking forward to bringing this conflict to a negotiated settlement.
Okay.
And to do that, we have to take a step back from different actions, look more into the ideological aspect of the conflict, and bring different together to a table to sit, discuss, negotiate, and look for a way forward to a sustainable solution of the armed conflict.
Okay. You have your first impressions. You have listened to both Mr. Senze and Professor Lilian. Is that what has been missing this far, Apostle Lambe?
Yes, I think in a conflict there's supposed to be a neutral body to come in between the two rivals, because we have always had the rivals throughout the conflict. The other side is agitating on this, the other side is on this. They need somebody in the middle to come like a peace broker to draw both parties together to negotiate on how to solve the crisis. And I think that's a role the coalition for dialogue and negotiation is coming to play. And most of the times you see, since the crisis started, people either want to speak on their behalf. If you sit and you speak anything against the separatists, they will tag you a black left from the government. If you speak something against the government, they will tag you a separatist. And that is the reason why the conflict has been tensioned and it has been prolonged. But I think this neutral body coming in between these two rivals to broker peace in between the two of them, I think it's one of the rare bodies we have had since the crisis started. And I think that if we're having a body like this coming to bring the government and the peace and the separatists on the table to negotiate, because from their title is a coalition for dialogue and negotiation. They want to bring them to come to a consensus and then discuss the pros and the cons of the crisis, and then be able to see how they can conclude to bring the common man. I'm sure, practically speaking, the coalition for dialogue and negotiation is worried about the plea, the worries and the complaints of the common man who is caught in between the crossfire between the separatists and the government. So I'm sure the coalition for dialogue and negotiation is playing a very pivotal role, because that is one body we have lacked. Like I explained the last time here concerning the Bougainville and the people of Papua New Guinea, New Zealand had to come in between the two of them to negotiate, since the other bodies we have in the world who are supposed to play the role of negotiators have been very, very silent, like the UN, the Francophonie, the Commonwealth have been very, very silent and quiet. We need a separate body like this to come in between the two of them and then broker peace, so that at least we can return back to normalcy as a country again.
Ok, Maître Bliga, est-ce que c'est ce qu'il manquait depuis ou...
Moi d'abord je suis très content, je suis pris de savoir que il y a certains de nos compatriotes qui pensent qu'on peut trouver une solution interne. Parce que jusqu'ici, et l'apôtre vient de le dire, on a attendu que les Nations Unies, l'UA, l'Union africaine, et même le CEMAC et autres, que toutes ces institutions essayent de nous aider. Mais ça également, il y a des Camerounais qui estimaient que nous sommes suffisamment grands pour pouvoir régler nos problèmes en interne et que nous n'avons pas besoin de la négociation, de l'intervention de la Suisse et autres pour pouvoir régler nos problèmes. Donc le fait de savoir qu'il y a nos frères et sœurs qui, certains étant dans la diaspora, peuvent se mettre en arbitre, ou un arbitre qui veut être neutre pour pouvoir rapprocher les parties et trouver des solutions. Moi je pense que c'est une chose qui doit être encouragé, parce que l'un des problèmes qui s'est posé lorsqu'on a parlé de négociations, c'est que le gouvernement a toujours dit, mais on négocie avec qui? Ça, c'est le problème qui s'est posé. Et lorsqu'il y a eu ce que on peut appeler les rumeurs de négociations avec Ayuk Tabé, il y a eu des voix, des gens qui disaient, mais Ayuk Tabé, il est en prison. Quel est le pouvoir? Enfin, dire qu'il est en prison, il ne peut pas nous représenter, nous sommes dehors. Donc, on lui a contesté même le leadership. Aujourd'hui, je pense que le rôle de cette coalition, entre autres, sera d'identifier au niveau des séparatistes, parce que du côté du gouvernement, on sait qu'il y avait qui négocier, au niveau des séparatistes, qu'on voit quels sont ceux avec qui on doit négocier. Ceux qui sont à l'étranger, la diaspora, ceux qui sont à l'intérieur, ou ceux qui ont pris les armes, parce que c'est pas forcément les mêmes personnes. Donc il faudra pouvoir trouver déjà à partir de là une plateforme pour que toutes ces personnes-là, qui n'ont peut-être pas les mêmes vues et ou les mêmes visées par rapport à cette crise, puissent se réunir, et comme ça, ils désigneront des interlocuteurs avec lesquels le gouvernement pourra discuter avec l'aide et l'intervention de nos frères et sœurs de la diaspora. La seule chose qui m'embête un peu, et j'ai suivi tant Maître Senze que Liliane, professeur Liliane, elle disait Soldats Cameroun. c'est comme si cette coalition ne doit concerner que nos frères et sœurs du Nord ou du Sud-Ouest. Non, je pense que dans un élan d'unité, de rassemblement, il est bien qu'on puisse intégrer même les francophones, c'est ainsi, qui sont intéressés par la paix. Vous voyez, lorsque vous regardez le conflit centenaire et millénaire entre les Juifs et entre l'Israël et les Palestines, très souvent, il y a des groupes de pacifistes qui regroupent les deux camps, qui sont en même temps, qui prennent les Arabes et les Palestiniens, et ils prennent les Juifs israéliens pour pouvoir faire une coalition, pour pouvoir essayer d'impulser la paix. Donc il ne faut pas, pendant qu'on veut faire, on veut l'unité, qu'on commence à dire non, c'est seulement nos frères du sud-ouest, nord-ouest qui doivent pouvoir se réunir dans le cadre de la coalition. Peut-être que j'ai mal suivi, mais c'est ce que j'ai pu comprendre. Donc il faut qu'on comprenne que si on peut identifier dans la zone francophone des Camerounais qui sont pour la paix, ils sont nombreux d'ailleurs, et pourquoi pas les intégrer dans cette mouvance de recherche de la paix en interne.
Okay. Good evening to you, Siki, Wonder Boy, Wesley Ngoni Chiku. Good evening to you, Ndip Tambe Ebot, Jack Money. You say, what, Mr. Liu, why are you not reading my messages on WhatsApp anymore? Is it because I told you to stop limiting the panelists on your channel? No, Jack Money, please. Many persons are writing on a day, so there's no reason for me to not want to read your message. What can the coalition? Okay, so anybody who wants to write your messages. I'm going to read them. I will get back to you, Professor Lilian. Now, what are those instruments available for the coalition for dialogue and negotiations to carry their mission to a successful end? What instruments do you have?
I will start by outlining the structure of the coalition for dialogue and negotiation.
Okay.
The coalition started with its founding members who constituted themselves and called themselves the steering committee of the coalition. Besides this steering committee, which is the executive body of the coalition, they have what they call an advisory board. This advisory board is made up of retired ambassadors, retired presidents, retired senior level officials, including people like Ambassador Mala, who is retired ambassador, President Soya, who is a former president of Sierra Leone, Cameroonian son Paul, like Magikilo, who is a retired high level executive of the African Development Bank, many of them. These people advise the coalition for dialogue and negotiation on the strategies they can use nationally to bring partners, support the crisis in and negotiation. These are people who have been in conflict situations, who have assisted in solving conflict between nations internally and internationally. And this body advises us on strategic steps to take. We also have the members of the coalition who work with the steering committee and are a team of professionals with very expert skills and are assigned specific tasks. I'll hesitate to name some of the tasks now. Then we have what we call the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders is a select group of respectable elderly South Cameroonians who are very knowledgeable in the problem of the South Cameroon from where we are today. These are individuals who sit back and have the right to a level that they are no longer practicing. And advise them to bring them to reason. And then we come together to build different factions, if I may call that faction, or entities of Southern Cameroonians together so that they will have a unified goal. Actually, all what said in the Southern Cameroonians have a unity of hope, which is freedom, peace, to bring justice to the people of South Cameroon sustainably in the environment. South of Earth has admitted to advise the different entities of the Southern Cameroonians so that they will form themselves as a unified team in order to proceed with negotiation and dialogue. Then, besides this, we also have different bodies work with, for example, the Interparliamentary Forum, where we work with different parliamentarians from different countries, so that they too can bring their own parliament to pressure the government of Cameroon and Southern Cameroonians group to a negotiation. For example, the American Senate brought out their resolution 684, and we believe that this parliamentary forum can also bring the different parliaments of Germany, of South Africa, of England, of Norway, of Ireland, and different countries they are engaging in. It also pressure the different parties.
Professor, are you engaging the Cameroonian MPs also? Are you engaging them to do what you are saying of MPs from Germany and other countries?
We are using our different arms. Remember, I spoke about the structure of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. That we have retired ambassadors, we have parliamentarians, and through these, our advisory board members, we are engaging all governments, including the of Cameroon. So, for example, we have the MP of Germany, Hoffman. Through him, we will and can engage the parliamentarians of Cameroon, because they would talk as equals, as colleagues, rather than us and talking as individuals. So it will be institution to institution rather than individual to institutions.
Okay, Mr. Mike Senze, Professor talked about, I don't know whether you are the one who talked about the shifts in positions. How are you going to push for a shift in previously held positions, and how are you also going to engage all the factions to ensure that when we talk of, say, of a negotiation, people should not question who has competence to negotiate?
Mr. Kuhn, before I respond to your questions, I just want to use the opportunity to provide a few clarifications to the feedback that came from Metro Biliga, who I have an enormous amount of respect for. He obviously represents the progressive wing of the CPDM, and a group that has been quite interested in looking at this problem from a different perspective. So I mean, I think it's worth calling that out. With respect to a couple of things, I think it's critical, if we're serious about solving this problem, that we confront certain truths, right? There's a comment that came around, Southern Cameroon. Again, that is really the, I guess, in order to even have the citizenship of Cameroon, it is pretty clear on the fact that you ought to have originated from Southern Cameroon. So again, we can get into that, but I just want for the record to establish that that nomenclature is not one that is without historical significance. Now, proceeding to the second point that he raised around, addressing this issue internally. Again, there's a record out there of the internal processes being relatively inefficient in addressing this problem. The CDN has looked at other dimensions, even across, the regions. Again, we can look at what ECAS has done, or CEMAC. We can look at what the AU has done. So it is, there's an overwhelming perspective out there that for us to have a solution that is sustainable, we need to engage other actors to help us build that piece for the future. Now, again, with respect to your specific question, I mean, there are several things that, again, the CDN is doing and can do, but I just thought it was necessary for me to issue those clarifications, because it really speaks to the kind of conversation that we're hoping we can have in order to ensure that the concerns of the parties, the concerns of the people, and even the concerns of the international community speak to some of the directions or the clarifications that they've been offering, since the start of this crisis. So again, just trying to make sure we do not lose focus of what we think is important if we need to come up with a sustainable solution. And again, the CDN comes to this purely from a technocratic perspective. It's a non-ideological organization. We're not looking at this in terms of, is what point of view or what ideology do we anchor with. We're really just looking at this in terms of, how do we make sure we address the problem? How do we make sure we identify the problems? And how do we ensure we have the right solutions to ensure that we have peace and prosperity for our people, in the decades to come?
Yeah, but for this to be done, you would need to get the stakeholders on both sides to the table. My question to you is, have you been talking with the guys to come together? Because that is a point that was raised earlier on by Professor Lilian.
Absolutely, but I think it's very important for the people of, for the people of the Southern Cameroons to be, again, I think it's very important for us to understand that this is a process. And I think it's also important for all stakeholders, and again, we're looking at, I want to be very clear here, there is a conflict situation here, right? So there are different perspectives across the board. So if we want to look at this in terms of what needs to happen, if you go back in time and say, where did this problem originate from? It is crystal clear that, we're talking about, a failed decolonization process that has created consequences that we are dealing with today. Now, if you are of the perspective that, we need to, build one happy union, then one of the key things that has to be important to anybody who holds that viewpoint is the foundation of that happy union.
Okay.
But then we have a situation today where those perspectives have changed. So the CDN is really looking at this, not just in terms of what is going on the ground, but we're looking at it in terms of the international actors that need to come into that solution, not just to help us go through what are very important and complicated discussions that we need to have, but also to ensure that we have the right level of support for whatever framework comes out of that. So we are looking at this, across the board. We're trying to come up with a solution at CDN that is fairly holistic, and again, it entails a lot of different things. Of course, there's an ongoing war. There's a lot of pain at this point. A ceasefire, a de-escalation, and a return to substantive talks is extremely critical. But I think the challenge that we have as a people is to really try to think beyond that, try to imagine what that tomorrow looks like, and use this opportunity to try and create that. Okay. So that's really what we're looking at. But to get to that solution, it's a comprehensive set of options, and we're looking at it from the CDN holistically. We're not looking at this as a single issue. It's a comprehensive package that needs to lay a firm, solid foundation to uplift our people and give them a chance to seize the opportunities of tomorrow. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. My name is Fonyo Evans. I'm writing from Kumbu. People are dying every day. We don't know what will have to happen for the killings to stop. Even today, people are killed in Kumbu. Fonyo, good evening to you. This one says, what a good initiative. But we hope that the government is going to allow it to drive through. Dinabel is writing from Tico. Good evening to you, Dinabel. We need peace in the northwest and southwest regions. My name is Wobe Fwa Umaru. Very difficult here because the CDN says they are known ideological. They're in the middle. They want peace to come. What support do they need from both the stakeholders to make sure that their mission is fulfilled?
The first thing is collaboration. The first thing that both stakeholders owe CDN is collaboration, because they are coming in between the two rivals to bring a permanent solution. And it's very possible that they can come in between the two of them and one person does not hit. If one person doesn't hit to the call they are making, either the government or the separatists, then CDN won't be able to accomplish its purpose. Since they are coming from a non-ideological point of view, it means all ideas are permitted to come on the table, they deliberate, and then now they come to a conclusion which of the ideas are better, good for the people to apply. So if I think the highest challenge they will have if one party in question refuses to collaborate with them, because they are not coming as separatists, neither are they coming as people from the other side. They are coming as the people who want to bring these people to come to a consensus. Now, the collaboration on both sides is what this particular organization needs from the both parties for them to come to conclude. Yeah, but in other words, they are not coming with something already at heart. They are coming on what the people in question will decide. But these people need a bridge, because they have built walls between the two of them through rivalry, bitterness, anger, based on what has happened. Now, CDN is coming as a bridge to link these two persons. Then we are going to decide on what people think will be best for all of us. Yeah, but is this not a better offer, Mr. Bliga? Because many persons have been clamoring, like you said earlier on, that we need an international intervention. Is this not the better option?
Well, what I said is that, je parle en français, c'est plus facile. Donc, ce que je voulais dire, c'est que moi, j'ai apprécié cette initiative parce qu'elle est interne. C'est une initiative des Camerounais pour régler les problèmes du Cameroun. Il ne faut pas attendre que ce soit l'extérieur qui vienne régler nos problèmes. J'ai toujours en esprit ce qui se passe en Centrafrique, où il y a eu des négociations. On est allé par ici, on est allé au Soudan, on a signé les papiers, après la guerre a repris. Donc, je pense que si les Camerounais s'asseyaient pour parler de ces problèmes de manière claire et précise, on trouverait des solutions à nos problèmes. Et c'est pour cette raison qu'une coalition comme celle-là, pour moi, je l'apprécie. Alors, moi, la difficulté que j'ai évoquée tout à l'heure, et je n'ai pas encore trouvé de réponse à cette difficulté, c'est que autant le gouvernement est identifié et identifiable, il est identifiable et identifié. C'est une structure, c'est le président Paul Biya qui est le président, c'est le premier ministre qui est chef du gouvernement. On sait à qui s'adresser. De l'autre côté, ça devient compliqué. Parce qu'il y a les Chos, je ne sais pas quoi, ils sont là, il y a c'est quoi, Yuktabé, il y a d'autres personnes qui ne dépendent d'aucun groupe que ceux qui ont pris les armes, ces enfants qu'on a vus qui coupent les têtes et autres là-bas. Je ne suis pas sûr qu'ils sont forcément au-dessus d'un chef bien identifié. C'est là où moi je vois la difficulté, oui. L'identification des mouvements, de tous ces mouvements-là. Parce qu'en réalité, c'est le travail que nos compatriotes doivent faire, à mon sens, et ce sera le plus difficile, c'est de pouvoir réunir ces différents groupes sécessionnistes, pas seulement sécessionnistes, parce qu'il y a des fédéralistes également, qui ont leur position. Il y a ceux qui pensent qu'il faut penser à l'État unitaire. Oui. Donc tous ces groupes-là doivent être représentatifs des populations du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest. On ne peut pas privilégier un seul groupe en disant c'est parce qu'ils ont pris des armes, c'est eux qui doivent imposer une position. Non, il faut tenir compte des fédéralistes, ceux qui sont unitaires, qui veulent un État unitaire, et maintenant aller donc sur une table de négociation après avoir pris une position qui pourrait être plus ou moins commune. Certains ont reproché au gouvernement et du fait que on n'a pas permis au cardinal Toumi de Anglophone conférence. Peut-être que ça aurait pu être une solution. Peut-être que ça aurait pu être une solution. Le gouvernement, pour des raisons qu'il connaît, a peut-être pensé que ce n'était pas nécessaire de le faire. Mais je dis que nos frères qui ont pris l'initiative de pouvoir jouer le rôle d'intermédiaire entre le gouvernement et nos frères du nord et du sud-ouest doivent pouvoir commencer par réunir, unifier les positions de nos frères du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest.
Is that not where the problem lies? Because even today, I've read some factions that would describe people like Abdul Karim, Ayabachu, and the likes as working for the government. Wow. There are people who will say the coalition is also working for the government. And there are people who say Sako-led group is also working for the government. Is that not where the problem is?
Yes, like we said earlier, the division amongst the people themselves is very critical, because the ideologies are different, the individuals are different. You don't even know which of the ideologies is more populated than the other, which of them will be accepted, because somebody in the Southern Cameroon believes in federalism, another person believes in unitary state and decentralization, another person believes secession. Now it looks like more of the people who are, for instance, championing the fight are secessionists. Meanwhile, there are individuals who are silent. They don't even belong into any of these ideologies. Now, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation was to be that body that was to come and gather all these different broken splinter groups, bring them on a table and say, okay, we are now going to face the government with this.
What Natumi wanted to do?
Yes, we are going to.
Dialogue is called. There should be people who, yeah.
Good. We are going to face the government with this. With the federalism, let all of us assemble under one umbrella and then face the government with federalism. If it is decentralization, we face him. If it is secession, we face him. Because now, as a matter of fact, the whole population on the North and South is divided. We don't even know where everyone belongs. So this body is going to play that role to gather these bodies that are scattered together and then have a particular focus to drive and then face the government. So that's what Mete Briga is trying to communicate, and which I see is a very brilliant idea also.
Okay, Professor Lillian, I don't know whether you are getting what is happening, what they are saying out here. Is it easy bringing these factions together? Because I'm sure you have been approaching them for over a year now.
Yes, I will go back to what the barrister said. He said that it's difficult to negotiate with the Southern Cameroonians because they are not united, there are many factions. That has been an excuse, but they forget to know that the Southern Cameroonians, irrespective of the different units, have a unity of purpose. And the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation is working with different units to bring them together as one with a common purpose. We have what is coming up, which we call the Leadership Retreat, which has that objective of bringing these 1,000 Cameroonians together, not to form a unified body, but to have a unified objective.
Yes.
And therefore move to the negotiation table as a unified team with a single purpose.
Professor, that is what Professor, that is what you are saying. Is that what is?
Is it easy?
Is that have you engaged them and they are willing to go as you are saying?
Yes, we have engaged in pre-talks with up to 90% of the different bodies of the Southern Cameroon to that effect. And they all have agreed that they are willing to stick together and talk together and have this unified team. They have realized that that discourse, that there is no one to talk to, is only an excuse not to come to negotiate the negotiation table. And therefore, they are coming together, and we hope they will have that declaration to the world which says, we are Southern Cameroonians, we are ready for negotiation, and we stand as one people, negotiate for a sustainable end of the conflict and freedom for our people. And I believe that all the Southern Cameroonians, irrespective of who they are, federalists, unionists, separatists, we all have one vision to end the conflict. And after the cessation of fighting, then to talk of other things, because nothing can happen if there is no cessation. And that cessation cannot happen if two parties, that is the state of Cameroon and the Southern Cameroonians, are not talking with each other. We are leaving no voice unheard. All Southern Cameroonians, irrespective of ideological orientation, we hope that they will come together as a people and speak together so that they can speak with the state of Cameroon.
Professor, I want us to be clear. You talk of secession. I don't understand what secession you are talking. I hope you are talking about
secession of hostilities. Yes. Yes.
Because people, yeah, some people may look at it, may get it different.
Excuse me?
No, I'm talking about actually clarifying the meaning of the secession you've used twice. You've used the word secession twice.
We believe that we need a third-party mediation because there is distrust among the parties. And the government of Cameroon believes that they can win the war through an armed, using the army. And it has been proven for 5 years today that the government of Cameroon cannot win that war through fighting, through killing of people. They cannot be silenced. So we believe that there has to be a third party that will bring the government of Cameroon and Southern Cameroonians together to speak.
Yeah, but
decide that
Professor, you say the government is using I don't know, the military, but the other side is also engaged in violent activities. It's not only the government, because before now they talked about using using non-violent methods like Barrister Bala and others intended.
The Southern Cameroonians have said they are doing self-defense. It is the government of Cameroon that has an army. The Southern Cameroonians do not have an army.
Okay, Professor Lilian, I will get to Mr. Senze. Mr. Senze, we are talking about how you guys can bring peace and justice. That is what is paramount for the people of Cameroon. Which one comes first? Are you working for peace to return before justice, or justice comes before we live in peace in Cameroon?
Thank you, Mr. Kuhlman. And just to ensure there's no controversy around what Prof mentioned, and she was talking about the cessation of hostilities, so I just want to make sure we move there. Now, with regards to peace and justice, again, I want to emphasize that our focus is on following the process, right? So there are international standards around how conflicts of this nature are resolved. And yes, there is going to be a debate around peace and justice. People have different expectations, but there is a process. And that process calls for us, prior to negotiations or prior to any serious discussion, for there to be several things. There needs to be a ceasefire. There needs to be a de-escalation of hostilities. People are not going to talk when those conditions are still there on the ground. And it is our perspective, again, looking at how this crisis has evolved, that there is a significant responsibility on the part of the government of Cameroon to actually drive this process. There are commitments that do bind the government of Cameroon in the international arena. And we're hoping that, Metro Biliga will relay this message back to, the folks it's representing around the importance for us to have the right preconditions for us to have the kind of dialogue that is going to lead to, the sustainable peace that he obviously believes in.
Yeah, but Mr. Mike Senze, you are talking on behalf of Southern Cameroonians. Is that what I'm getting from your discussions, you and Professor Lilian? Because
absolutely not.
Yeah. Is that the sense we're getting?
No, we don't speak on behalf of Southern Cameroonians. What we do, again, from a CDN perspective, is to ensure one of the objectives we have is around education. It's about making sure that we understand how these processes work. We understand, we've not been in a war before. We don't necessarily understand what it takes to get out of a war. But we believe that it's important for us to understand what the protocols are, for us to comply with those protocols, to ensure that the peace that comes out of that war is substantive and sustainable.
Okay, Metro Biliga, do you now see how difficult it is? Often said that it's easy to start a war, but very difficult to end it. do we now need the expertise of conflict experts on both sides to engage and see how to bring to fruition what this coalition is proposing? Because on both sides, seemingly, we have politicians who are piloting things.
Il y a une chose, ouais. Moi je dis, c'est vrai que on sait quand on commence la guerre, on ne sait jamais quand on l'a fini. Et il y a des guerres qui durent pendant des années. Mais n'empêche que les gens négocient, les gens parlent, les gens se parlent, essayent d'avancer. Et moi je dis, il y a certaines circonstances qui parfois ne dépendent pas forcément de nous, qui peuvent amener à la guerre à s'arrêter, ou bien les partis à s'entendre. J'étais sur un plateau avant-hier de télévision, je racontais cette histoire, par exemple, de Savumbi, en Angola. Oui. On a laissé Savumbi pendant la guerre froide, qui représentait les intérêts des Occidentaux, contre, par exemple, Neto qui représentait les intérêts des socialistes, c'est-à-dire de l'Union soviétique. Lorsque la guerre froide est terminée avec la fin du mur de Berlin, il s'est trouvé qu'à un moment donné, les Américains se sont dit, ça ne servait plus à rien. On a pu l'identifier à partir de son Turaya, le téléphone Turaya, c'est comme ça qu'on a pu le tuer. Et la guerre pratiquement a cessé, son parti d'unité est devenu un parti politique, etc. Nous avons vu ce qui se passe avec en Colombie, où les FARC ont commencé à baisser les bras parce qu'ils n'ont plus. Aujourd'hui, je dis, il y a quelque chose qui est en train de se passer. Le fait que nos trois frères soient, nos deux frères et sœurs, soient aujourd'hui devant la justice américaine, parce qu'on les accuse d'avoir fait transporter les armes. Le fait que les Américains aient parlé pour dire que nous voulons que la guerre cesse, sinon on va essayer de prendre des mesures contre toutes les parties, que ce soit du côté du gouvernement, que ce soit du côté...
Les mesures sont prises déjà.
Ah, voilà. Donc je veux dire que c'est les éléments qui vont favoriser le travail de nos frères, de la coalition pour le dialogue et la négociation. Parce que dès lors que ces personnes savent que s'ils envoient les armes, c'est-à-dire les financiers, nos frères qui sont de la diaspora qui financent cette guerre-là, dès lors qu'ils savent qu'ils ne peuvent plus financer, ceux qui sont sur le terrain ne peuvent plus avoir des armes, ne peuvent plus avoir les moyens même financiers pour pouvoir survivre à la guerre, ils sont plus prêts à accepter de revenir sur une table de négociation. Ils deviendront beaucoup plus pacifiques qu'ils ne le sont aujourd'hui, sont arrogants, parce qu'ils se disent, nous avons les armes, qui sont de plus en plus sophistiqués, dont on peut tenir tête, nous avons les moyens de faire vivre nos familles, etc. Si on leur coupe les vivres, vous verrez bien que cela va les amener à fléchir leur position. De la même manière, ceux qui sont, appelons ça extrémistes du côté du gouvernement, ils vont comprendre que ils ont peut-être des enfants qui sont aux États-Unis, ils ont des intérêts aux États-Unis. S'ils ne font pas un pas en avant pour pouvoir arriver à la paix, ils peuvent avoir des problèmes. C'est pour cette raison que, parlant du nom du RDPC, vous savez que le gouvernement a dit le dialogue n'est pas un événement, c'est un processus. Oui. Ça veut dire que même si on a fait le grand dialogue national qui a connu le résultat qu'on a connu, nous devons continuer à négocier, nous devons continuer à trouver des voies et moyens pour aboutir à la paix dans notre pays. Je vous dis que moi, mon problème, c'était l'unification des points de vue de nos frères du nord ou du sud-ouest qui n'ont pas, comme on l'a dit tout à l'heure, tous la même position vis-à-vis du gouvernement, ou bien vis-à-vis du sort qui doit leur être réservé. Est-ce la création d'un État d'Amazonie? Est-ce le fédéralisme assez poussé, avec une autonomisation des régions? Est-ce plutôt le fait d'être dans l'État unitaire, mais avec une décentralisation telle qu'elle est en train d'être conçue aujourd'hui par le gouvernement? Mais je dis ces positions qui, hier, semblaient être tranchées, peuvent évoluer, pas forcément, je veux dire, à travers de l'intervention extérieure. Tout à l'heure, on parlait de l'Union africaine, des Nations unies, etc. Voilà, l'Amérique qui arrive. L'Amérique, c'est le gendarme du monde. On peut ne pas le reconnaître, mais c'est la vérité. Si les Américains frappent la main sur la table, on a vu les Américains débarquer dans les pays comme la Grenade. On a vu les Américains débarquer, prendre Noriega, etc. On les a vus, ils sont capables de le faire. On les a vus en Irak. Donc je veux dire qu'ils ont les moyens de leur politique lorsqu'ils veulent imposer quelque chose. Mais je dis, n'attendons pas que ce soit les Américains qui viennent régler nos problèmes. Parce que lorsqu'ils doivent régler le problème, ils vont s'installer, et quand ils vont s'installer, ce sera nos ressources, ce sera une autodomination qu'on doit éviter. C'est pour ça qu'il faut encourager nos frères et sœurs qui pensent qu'on peut trouver une solution. Moi, je dis, je termine par là, et certains disent, mais le gouvernement a dit, la forme du gouvernement n'est pas négociable. Aucun gouvernement au monde n'est prêt à voir la sécession s'installer dans son territoire. Il n'y a aucun. On a vu la guerre de sécession aux États-Unis qui a duré des années et des années, parce qu'on ne voulait pas la sécession. On a vu au Soudan comment ça s'est passé avant que le Soudan du Sud n'ait son indépendance. On a vu l'Éthiopie avec l'Érythrée. Il a fallu batailler fort pour qu'on arrive à cela. Maintenant, je dis donc que aucun pays n'est prêt. Donc on ne peut pas reprocher au gouvernement le fait de dire que nous ne voulons pas de la sécession. Mais le gouvernement est prêt à aller un peu plus loin pour obtenir, pour faire de sorte que les populations se sentent maîtres de leur destin. Ce que j'aime, je voudrais éviter, je l'ai dit encore avant-hier, c'est que il ne faut pas seulement se limiter au point de vue de la langue. Pour moi, ce n'est pas suffisant. Parce que la sécession, sinon il n'y aura pas de problème de sécession au Biafra. Puisqu'ils ont la même langue, ils ont la même culture. C'est-à-dire les autres, que ce soit les Biafrais, je veux dire nos frères du sud-est du Nigeria, que ce soit les gars de Ment, Movement of Emancipation of Niger Delta. C'est les mêmes personnes, mais ils veulent bien s'émanciper et partir du gouvernement de la fédération du Nigeria. C'est-à-dire que même la fédération, dans la fédération, il peut avoir des problèmes. Ce qui implique donc que pour moi, le problème en réalité, c'est la gouvernance en réalité. Okay. C'est-à-dire qu'il faudrait que chaque Camerounais se sente bien et ne prenne pas seulement à appui du fait que nous avons une histoire qui nous différencie des Camerounais de langue francophone, de langue française, parce que même le Togoland avec le Ghana, ils ont la même langue, ils ont pratiquement le même destin, mais ils veulent se séparer. Donc voilà un peu ce que je voulais dire.
Okay. Apostle Lambe Valentin Ngoa, quite difficult here. How do you see when we talk of bringing justice and peace in the southwest and northwest regions? I asked a question to Mr. Mike Sensei, which one comes before the other? We ensure that there is justice for the crimes committed before there is peace, or we ensure, like Professor Lilian said, there should be a cessation of hostilities, and then we look into who has done what?
Well, it depends on the situation on ground, because there are situations where we want justice before peace, another one we want peace before justice. For instance, the amount of persons that are dying already will need peace by all costs. If you ask any normal individual right now, they will not tell you the form of the state. They will tell you that we want peace first.
Yes, that is true.
Because of what? The atrocities and the casualties that have taken place so far as the war is concerned. Everybody is at a crossroad. What they need now, I used to tell that until you are sick to a particular extent, you will not take urine as a remedy. When this war started, okay, it was smooth, going easily. But the way things are going around, the economy is down, education is down, health is down, people's life are all down. If you ask any normal person right now, he will not tell you secession, he will not tell you federation, he will not tell you unitary system, he will tell you peace. The first thing they need now is peace. Justice can come later. And how can we achieve this peace? Both parties should accept the fact that a lot of damages are taking place as far as the guns are still smoking. Both of them should come to a place to know that the guns are no longer needed. Let us all drop the guns on the ground. Then now we cannot decide on when to sit down and then serve justice to the person that deserves justice. Because I can tell you, the more the guns keep smoking, the more we are losing lives every day. And any person that has lived in those two regions, from the time this crisis started till now, things are getting worse. Reports came down from Kumbo yesterday. We saw military people were shot down, and also Amber boys were killed. The killing continues, and all those people are Cameroonians, they're people's children, and once they keep on dying, we are losing the individuals that were supposed to have been a blessing to the country tomorrow. So as I'm telling you, anybody who has not been sick to a greater extent cannot even accept Eskreta as a remedy. We are at a position right now that we are frustrated. We need peace at all costs. We need peace at all costs. Justice can be served later. We thank God for what the United States of America is trying to do to come in to, give restrictions, trying to bring solutions to the problem. But like the barrister said, the coalition for dialogue and negotiation, I think and I believe, if they put efforts to bring these two parties together and bring them on a table to negotiate, and discuss a way forward to this crisis, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a great help to help abate the crisis. Because as it stands now, people are traumatized. Children are dying, boys are dying, women are dying because of the crisis, and we are tired of burying people every day. We are seeing videos on social media everywhere how people are being killed. They are carried in trucks, some are carried on wooden planks and taken to the graves to be buried. So we think that if at all there is a possibility for peace to come right now, let the fire cease. Let the fire cease. It's often said that it's the government that has the yam and the knife, and they have a better position and stand a better chance to halt the crisis. If we keep on shooting and killing ourselves continually, I don't know when the war will ever end, because nobody is willing to accept that he or she or whoever, no camp is willing to accept that they are wrong. Everybody is right, and two people who are always right can never be corrected. Somebody has to accept that this thing is costing us so much, and the person has to come to a position where we can be able to solve this problem once and for all, because we are frustrated.
Okay, we have...
Juste pour dire une chose, tout à l'heure, pour parler des morts, j'ai suivi un communiqué du directeur de l'hôpital, je crois, de Bamenda, qui disait qu'il y a 8 corps qui sont là dans la morgue depuis des années, enfin depuis plusieurs, qui ne sont pas récupérés. Les parents n'ont même plus le courage d'aller chercher les morts dans les morgues. Donc je veux dire que cette guerre doit cesser,
Elle doit cesser. Professor Liliane, if you are online, your reaction to the U.S. decision on visa restrictions for those who are not for peace, because we are talking about peace and justice in Cameroon. Now, you followed the reaction of the U.S. government. The visa restrictions is on as we speak, because that was the announcement of the U.S. Secretary of State. You think that the U.S. was reacting to some of the recommendations from the CDN?
Yes, the CDN works closely with the State Department and systematically has conversations with the State Department, informing them of many issues that are happening within the southern Cameroon. The visa restrictions has come as a very timely sanction, but I think that Mr. Mike Senze is better placed to speak on that.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mike.
Right, and thanks, Prof, for the opportunity. I think I just want to, issue a few clarifications that are important, because
my question. Okay, go on, Mr. Mike.
Right. No. I'm responding to your question, right?
Okay.
So we're looking at a fairly compact communication that came from Secretary Blinken, and within that communication, every word is important. Now, the most important, bridge in that communication is for us to have dialogue without preconditions. That is the key thing there, right? Now, but again, there are several other pieces that we really need to look at. But there is a history. So this is not just an action that happened in isolation. This is something that follows several other, attempts by the government of the United States to get the government of Cameroon to go down this path of, having substantive, discussions, right, with a goal towards getting to peace. So if we think about it, I mean, there's Resolution 684 that came before that. There were several other interventions. We all remember on the Secretary Thibault Nagy coming to Cameroon. There's several other interventions. So it's a continuation of different things. Now, looking at that resolution, the key thing there that people need to take into consideration is the United States of America believes and supports that conversation without preconditions. Now, there are other aspects that are in that document. And again, you look at specific sections. I mean, there's a paragraph in there that speaks to, the right to education for kids, getting them to an opportunity to go back to school. But those are actions that happen after you've created the right conditions. There's another statement in there that speaks to, allowing the flow of humanitarian aid. And again, that is really an important message that speaks to what their expectations are. And it is regrettable, at least from our perspective, when you think about the restriction that was put on Doctors Without Borders, from our perspective, that is regrettable because it's inconsistent with the expectations of the United States. So again, the key things, the key thing here in terms of who should be concerned about it, of course, you have people who are actually violating human rights on the ground. But one of the key lessons that we're hoping people take across the board from that communication is the need for people to be careful when they're taking positions that actually stand in the way of getting to a peaceful reconciliation. So that is who this is really targeted towards. And, I know Metro Biliga spoke earlier on with regards to some of the other legal actions that are being taken, against people here in the United States. But, if you look at the way the United States government functions, the jurisdiction of the State Department is totally separate from Justice or Homeland Security. So those are not necessarily connected. I just think it's important for the authorities in Cameroon to read that communication very carefully, to understand what the emphasis points are, and not to, frame it for what it isn't, because from the perspective of the CDN, we're taking what the U.S. government takes very seriously. We welcome their engagement, we welcome their participation, and, again, we hope that they will, stand by the side of the people to help us work through this process.
Mr. Mike, you are saying that this clearly is a position that is giving the government of Cameroon a way, a way down the road to negotiation. Seemingly, this is not also indexing the separatists themselves. Isn't it a call for them to be disposed to eventually walking down the path to peace?
No, I mean, for the war to come to an end, both parties have to be on the table, right? Both parties have a stake in the outcome of this war. That's how war ends. Cameroon is not an exception to the rules, right? So if you look at across the world, every other conflict, it comes down to the ability to have that conversation. What is being stalled in Cameroon right now is the willingness of both parties to get to that point. And if we look at what the international community has been advocating for, because they've been very, very vocal, relatively, right? They've been very, very vocal about what is going on in Cameroon. But when you look at the interventions, the domestic interventions since 2016, most objective, most people who look at this objectively will tell you that the mechanisms that have been put in place internally have not given our people the kind of succor, the kind of result, the kind of relief that they need to be able to advance to genuine discussions. So again, the key thing here is, yes, the government of Cameroon may have other ideas that they're trying to, deliver on, but it's important for us to understand that the dynamics have changed since 2016. There are more actors who are looking at what is going on. The expectations will not be local remedies, contrary to what Metro Biliga is thinking of. It is going to be something that passes international muster. And again, we're dealing with a radically different, with a very different set of Southern Cameroonians today who have international exposure, who understand how these things work. So again, the longer the government of Cameroon waits, the higher the bar gets, and that's really the key thing. We're all interested in getting to a credible outcome that goes beyond, that addresses the people. Mr. Mike, but again, time is of the essence.
Yeah, Mr. Mike, do you also understand that those fighting are also getting tired, because you see the higher the bar gets, that is the wish to get the bar higher. But standing a war for too long also may not be easy. Because those that are taking the decisions, Mr. Mike, those that are taking the decisions are out there. You are talking of you are talking of Southern Cameroonians, and again I've asked the question whether you are talking for Southern Cameroonians or you are neutral as a coalition. Because if a coalition has to be seen as attractive to both sides, it should be seen as being neutral here.
Mr. Kum, from my vantage point, you're actually reinforcing the point I'm making.
Okay.
Now, if we look at this problem through the trajectory of time, right? Yeah. 2016, it was a different conversation. 2017 is different. 2018 is different. So as time goes by, you end up with the consequences that you're obviously trying to raise today. Okay. So our position is that it is important for us to fix the problem, right? For us not to have the additional delays, and for us to do that. Yes, I mean the parties who have the guns today are critical stakeholders to that process. The government of Cameroon is critical to that stake process. But from the CDN's perspective, again, what we're trying to do is not get booby-trapped in all the ideological corners. What we're trying to do is make sure that we have the right mechanism in place to solve this problem once and for all. Okay. And that's really what the focus is.
I want to take this message from Finzi. He's watching us from Boya. Finzi says that, Good evening, gentlemen. Permit me say Anglophones are the biggest hypocrites on planet Earth. We are crying for peace, but we don't advise our brothers and sisters in the bushes to drop their guns. Rather, we are blaming the states. Take note that no military in the world, not even that of the United States of America, will drop their guns when rebels are carrying theirs. Apostle Ambe will bear me witness that those communities that actually needed peace have chased Amber boys away, and peace has returned and the killings have stopped. Anglophones are acting in bad faith, thinking they are nailing the regime. But remember that when you play the evil drum, be ready to dance the evil dance. Good evening to you, Findy, watching me from Boya. Now, but the question now is, Mr. Mike talked about raising the bar high, which means that the conditions, he says the language is changing. But when you follow what the US is talking about, it's talking about being prepared to get to the table without preconditions. Is that not also where it gets complicated? That we say we want to go for peace, we want justice, we want negotiations, but we are multiplying conditions for it to happen.
Well, the report from the United States Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, I'm sure if you read that communique very well, he was addressing both parties. Okay. There are things that have happened within this crisis that you will know that these people from this angle perpetrated it. For instance, the Poles sang the song that there will be dialogue with preconditions. Is the government. We should be clear. The people who stood that there should be no school are the separatists. And the U.S. Secretary of State spelled it clear that those who are stopping people from going to school is there. And also those who say they should organize dialogue with preconditions, which means the U.S. is coming on both sides. Nobody is exempted. If the U.S. is coming to negotiate peace between the two parties, then all the parties from the both sides who have violated the things written in that communique will be implicated. It should not be like a one-sided stuff. If the government has violated some of the things written there, the people in question within the government ranks will be implicated. If there are people within the separatist cycle who also violated what came in the communique, they will be implicated. I do not think that communique is focusing on a particular sector. The communique has information on both parties, except we have not been following the crisis from 2016 till date. But if you have been a close observer of the activities taking place in this crisis, you will know that the communique from Anthony Blinken is addressing two parties in question. It has a portion that it technically addressed to the government, even though it did not write under it to Cameroon government, and it has a portion it technically addressed to the separatists, even though it did not write to the separatists. But to us who have been following the crisis closely and our ears are on ground, there's definitely there are informations in that communique that if you read it, you don't need to be told. If you interpret it effectively and with sincerity of heart, you will know that the government of USA is addressing this issue to this, because they are saying that the people who are promoting violence, the ones who do not want peace to return in Cameroon, and they are talking to the Cameroonian people that they are with them. They did not talk about being with the separatists, talking with the government. The Cameroonian people is different from the separatists and the government. But there are things within the communique that you will know that this particular issue is addressed to the separatists, likewise this is addressed to the government. So I think from what they are coming, I don't see the United States of America taking side with any of the parties. Their purpose is to stop the war. And the things that are generating or increasing or igniting the fire of the war, that is what they want to quench on both sides. Because if they quench what government is using to instigate the war and what separatists are using to instigate the war, when they quench those two fire burning on both sides, it will help the war to cease. Because you cannot say you are going to ask the separatists to do this, and then what is causing the government to increase the war should be kept. And you ask the government to stop what is causing the war, they will leave for the separatists to increase the war. If what the government is using to increase the war is dialogue without any negotiation, they are coming to stop it. If what the separatists are using to increase the war is stopping children from going to school, they are coming to stop it. As a matter of fact, fire is burning from both camps, and people are suffering. The U.S. is coming as a fire extinguisher to extinguish on both sides the things fanning aglow the war. I'm sure that is the reason for that communique. The U.S. is coming because there are things that can be pushing me to increase fight against Metre. And Metre has some things that is also instigating him to fight against me. And since they've asked me to stop mine, I've refused. They ask him to stop his, he's refused. A third party is coming to quench that thing in me that ignites the war, and also quench that thing in him igniting the war. Then both of us now can now come on the table to negotiate and see how both of us can move forward.
Biliga, you are of the CPDM party. What has been your reaction? What has been your reaction on that of the party with respect to the outing of the U.S. Secretary of State imposing visa restrictions? And do you think that the U.S. may go further than what they've done?
Je voudrais d'abord dire une chose. Il faut noter que il y a une sorte de changement de position des États-Unis, avec le changement d'administration Trump-Biden. On avait l'impression avec Thabo Nagui qu'on frappait beaucoup plus sur le gouvernement et qu'on protégeait les sécessionnistes. C'est l'impression que nous avons eu à un moment donné. Avec l'arrivée de Biden, avec ce que M. Blinken vient de dire, et je suis d'accord avec mon vis-à-vis l'apôtre, et tout le monde se sent concerné. On dit au gouvernement, soyez prêts à négocier. Ne mettez pas des conditions du genre, j'imagine, hein, comment on fait ça, non pas sécession, c'est-à-dire la forme de terre est non négociable, par exemple, parce que ça peut être, ça peut être une cause. Voilà. Si les gars disent ils ont dit qu'ils vont jamais négocier sur la forme de terre, au nom de la sécession, donc on va leur imposer cette sécession par les armes. On peut bien dire, écoutez, tout est négociable. Asseyons-nous, on va vous convaincre du fait que le Cameroun aujourd'hui n'a pas besoin d'une sécession. Parce que si vous vous fondez sur le fait que les zones anglophones sont moins développées, c'est une illusion. Il y a, je lisais avant-hier sur les réseaux sociaux, les gars du sud, du nord, du sud. Non, je parle même du sud. Le pays organisateur qui vous disait qu'ils n'ont pas un stade de ce que les stades de football qu'on voit à l'ouest, au sud-ouest et autres, ils n'en ont pas. Et c'est vrai. Ils n'ont pas de route. Jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Vous êtes, Ebolova est la capitale de la région du sud. Vous ne pouvez pas partir d'Ebolova pour aller à Kribi. C'est impossible. Vous pouvez pas aller d'Ebolova pour aller à Saint-Méliman, sur une route bitumée. Il n'y en a pas. Il n'y en a pas. La seule route bitumée, c'est Ebolova en Bam, qui est même une route internationale puisqu'elle va en Guinée équatoriale au Gabon. Oui. Vous comprenez, moi je suis du littoral, je suis de la saga maritime de Ndom. Pour aller chez moi aujourd'hui, je passe par l'ouest, lorsqu'il pleut. Je pars de Douala, je vais en Konsamba, Bangante, Tonga, Makenene, Dikinmiki, et je rentre en Ndom. Je suis à 212 km ici. Pour vous dire que nous avons tous des problèmes. Nous avons tous des raisons qui peuvent nous amener à faire la guerre, à prendre les armes en disant nous sommes... Et c'est ce message qu'il faut transmettre aux Camerounais. En leur disant, oui, disons au gouvernement de faire des efforts pour que le Camerounais vive bien, quel que soit l'endroit où ils sont. Mais ne mettons pas nos particularités linguistiques comme étant une base d'une marginalisation, etc. Je voudrais intervenir pour dire à M. Shinzeki, peut-être m'a pas très bien compris. J'ai apprécié le fait qu'il y a des solutions endogènes, c'est-à-dire des recherches de solutions à notre guerre, à la guerre la guerre dans laquelle nous sommes aujourd'hui dans notre pays, par des Camerounais, notamment cette coalition. Mais que ces Camerounais aujourd'hui ont la chance que, avec le développement et le changement de position des États-Unis, pas à travers le test, le message ou les restrictions de visa, aujourd'hui, ceux qui avaient pris les armes, ceux qui donnaient les armes, qui fournissaient les armes, ne peuvent plus fournir les armes parce que, entre autres, même comme il y a une indépendance de la justice américaine s'en est mêlée également pour attraire certains Camerounais par devant leurs tribunaux. Et du coup, ceux qui avaient l'intention de pouvoir continuer à dealer avec les sécessionnistes vont avoir peur. Et c'est une mesure qui, pour moi, la justice vient en renfort à la décision prise par l'exécutif, c'est-à-dire par le secrétaire d'État de l'interdiction de visa. Parce que pour quelqu'un qui est aux États-Unis, qui est même américain, interdiction de visa, ça ne dit rien puisqu'il est là, puisqu'il est américain, donc il vit en Amérique. L'interdiction de visa, c'est une décision qui concerne beaucoup plus les gens qui sont hors de l'Amérique, par exemple les Camerounais, qui vont là-bas. Mais il faut bien imaginer, il y a des gens qui vont te dire, à la limite, ça, ils s'en foutent pas mal d'aller aux États-Unis. Donc ça peut ne même pas avoir l'impact qu'on attend. Mais ce qui est important, c'est de comprendre que les États-Unis ont frappé la main sur la table et qu'ils ont une possibilité d'aller plus loin dans les décisions qui doivent être prises. Je crois que c'est une étape. On vous dit, faites attention, vous qui empêchez vos enfants d'aller à l'école, vous qui ne voulez pas des négociations, faites attention, parce que si vous continuez, nous irons plus loin. Parce que je pense que c'est ça l'objectif. Le visa, c'est une étape. L'interdiction du visa, c'est une étape. Cette étape ne concerne pas beaucoup de personnes. Mais en plus de ça, la justice américaine, elle est rentrée en jeu, peut-être d'une manière, par simple coïncidence, mais elle est là. Et sa présence joue un rôle important. On nous dit chez lui que une convocation de police ne se dit jamais comme lettre d'amour. C'est-à-dire, la peur du gendarme est le commencement de la sagesse. Si vous savez que en sortant là, vous allez trouver un gendarme parce que vous avez mal parlé sur ce plateau, vous ne parlerez pas moins. Vous avez essayé de dire un mot parce que vous savez que la justice, le gendarme est là en bas, même s'il ne vient pas vous arrêter. Okay. Donc le simple fait que les Américains disent, faites attention, si vous entravez la paix, vous nous aurez derrière vous, ou bien contre vous si vous voulez. Donc ça fait que les gens vont se calmer, les positions vont cesser d'être raides, et ceux qui, comme nos frères et sœurs de la coalition pour le dialogue, la négociation, auront un terrain beaucoup plus facile pour pouvoir rassembler les frères et des sœurs avec notamment l'aide des mouvements, des associations internationales ou des organisations internationales.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu. I am enjoying the program. This is Fritz watching from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone in the studio. I am Nestor writing from Kumbu. We need peace every day. People are dying. As for me, peace should come first before anything. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I pray that the government of Cameroon and the separatists should give up for this movement. Support this movement. We need peace. Bright is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening from Zoge Nzeme, writing from Bangem. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. I was very surprised to hear that some ministers do not attend cabinet meetings. I love your program titled Prime. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Bajewa Moses from mile 14. I think we are tired of this. We need peace. Okay, I don't know what you're writing. It's not too clear. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My name is Fonyu Evans. I'm in Kumbu. People are dying all the time out here. Good evening to you. This one reads, hi, good evening, Mr. Liu. Okay, tell some people to correct what they say. James is writing from Bafusam. Good evening to you, James. Professor Lilian, if you are there, Prof, from the standpoint of the United States, you say you said you did not want to talk more, but are you leaning more on international community to deliver, or you are also envisaging engaging more of the civil society organizations back home, and why not other initiatives that have been working to bring an end to the ongoing crisis in the southwest and northwest regions?
The government of Cameroon itself organized what is called the Grand National Dialogue, which largely did not succeed because it was not inclusive and is considered as a failure dialogue. It therefore means that there is no possibility of this conflict being solved at a local level, at a national level, thereby requiring an internationally mediated solution to the problem. We know the Swiss process is ongoing, but it has not been engaged by order. So we believe that only an internationally mediated solution can sustainably end the conflict in the southern Cameroon, while being inclusive and also addressing the root causes to the conflict, not the type of grand national dialogue that was organized by the state of Cameroon, which even in itself excluded those who even tried to participate in the dialogue, because certain topics were barred from discussion during that grand national dialogue, topics such as federation. How do you organize a dialogue and choose what should be discussed in the dialogue and who should participate in the dialogue? Instead of Cameroon says that it was inclusive, it is not true, because all the stakeholders did not feel free and safe to participate within dialogue, within that context, which has proven itself to be to not be honest with people who do not support their position, like the Ayuk who have been locked up in prison.
Professor,
so with President Ayuk, people do not feel free to discuss in Cameroon.
Professor Lillian, you talk of internationally mediated efforts. What if the Coalition for Dialogue were to be given the opportunity to engage in that process? You are Cameroonian. I'm sure Professor Mike is Cameroonian, Dr. Atem, and a host of others. Why don't you think that you can press for this to happen?
The Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation is there to facilitate dialogue and negotiation and not to act as mediators, because we do not have leverage over all the stakeholders. But in our facilitation process, we believe that an internationally multilateral mediation can yield better and sustainable fruits.
When you talk of international, are you also thinking of an African mediation process? Don't you believe that Africans can solve their problems?
Yes, there is the adage that African problems and African solutions. But ECAS and CEMAC have failed. They have not as much as engaged in the solution of the crisis in the southern Cameroon. The African Union has proved itself helpless, because for 5 years they have also done nothing. The only body so far that has come on board is the Swiss process. The Swiss government has engaged its institutions to engage in a dialogue. Unfortunately, so far, they have not accomplished much, because neither the state of Cameroon nor the non-state actors have come on board. However, the non-state actors, that is the parties of the southern Cameroon, have not rejected the Swiss process. Some have engaged in it, Others have accepted it but not yet engaged because they feel that the process is not yet clear enough for them to engage in, and therefore have as requirements certain conditions to be made clear so that they can engage in such a process. And some of them even think that a multilateral process is better than just the Swiss themselves.
Mr. Mike Sense, I don't know how successful the international community has been in solving African problems. Why are you so confident that the international community and not an African body, and why not you people playing that role of solving this problem? When we look at what is happening in the DRC, in Central African Republic, in other parts of Africa, do you believe that Cameroon is going to be different?
Cameroon has the potential to be different, and the reason why is because we are dealing with two parties. Now, the confusion comes up when we try to conflate the issue and break it up into different parties. But for anyone who has looked at this problem in earnest from the genesis, right, it is really a question of two sovereign entities that came together as part of the decolonization process. So that's one thing from a historical perspective. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on history. If we look at the situation in terms of where we are today, there are two groups. You have the government of Cameroon on one hand, and then you have the armed groups on the other hand, and then the population is really just suffering the consequences of what these two factions are doing. So if we want to be serious about negotiations, those are the two critical parties to that process. And that is something that is very, very important to call out. Now, we can have the semantic debates around divisions and all that, but again, the longer we wait and the more we dwell on those issues, the more likely it is that this crisis is going to keep dragging on. What we're trying to do at the CDN is focus on those parties and get those parties to a point where they can have internationally backed negotiations, and hopefully come out of that with a viable framework that really helps the people, get out of war, get to peace, and then, live a life, that is really what a lot of people are asking for. It is very important, and Mr. Kun, you have a very important platform. I would strongly encourage you again to help educate the public, because people are suffering, people are dying, and a lot of us who come to the CDN, we're not doing it from an ideological position. We're just trying to do what we can to reduce the pain and suffering of our people. And we can only get there by being very honest about the facts. Again, we may disagree, there may be opinions, but there are historical facts that take us to where we are. And there are obviously international proven techniques around how we can get out of there. Let's not spend too much time trying to invent a Cameroonian solution to a problem that has been experienced by other countries, and they've come up with remedies that do work. There are standards that can help us get there. There are actors who can help support us through this process. And from the perspective of the CDN, that really has to be part of what our calculus is moving forward. The more we spend time on these hashed out debates, the more the crisis endures. Sorry.
Mr. Mike, we have seen, I wanted you to cite examples of success stories as far as international mediation is concerned in Africa. I expected to hear some of them in Africa, so that we can know for sure that if the international community were to engage in Cameroon, Cameroon is going to find a lasting peace and justice that we all are looking forward to. But the issue is we are not so sure.
That's a simple question. I mean, Liberia is out there to tell you what Liberia has been through, right? Sierra Leone has been through. I mean, again, there are varying degrees of success in different countries.
Yeah, but we saw more of ECOWAS intervening in some of these countries you just cited.
Well, yes, there is ECOWAS at the regional level, but if you understand, if you look at these crises and how they're solved in their entirety, it's a combination of different stakeholders. Now, the fact that we're calling for the international community to help us solve the Cameroon problem does not mean that that process is not going to, induce regional partners to participate in that process. So what we're really looking for, again, Mr. Kuhn, this is an important problem. People have died. What we're looking for is to have the right level of support, not just to get us to peace, right, but to move beyond that. And it's going to be a combination of, different international, instruments and organizations paying attention to what we're doing. Yes, this is not a, we're not saying, there'll be forces from Europe or the United States coming to participate. But again, these are powers that do have a significant amount of leverage internationally. Okay. And the more they focus on the pain and suffering of our people, the quicker it is for us to get out of this.
Yeah, but Syria, not to you now. Let me get to the guys in the studio. Syria is there. The international community is observing Palestine and Israel. Is there? I don't know. I really want to be sure. What is the guarantee that if the international community were to come to Cameroon, things there is going to be definite peace and justice?
We have not seen the international community solve problems anywhere in the world.
Okay.
We have not. We've seen crises in different countries. We've not seen the international community solve problems. I gave the testimony of Papua New Guinea and Bougainville. The United Nations went to Bougainville and Papua New Guinea and made the Bougainville UN trust territory. They did not solve the problem. Australia aided Papua New Guinea by blocking the sea supply to Bougainville because they wanted secession. They did not solve the problem. It was New Zealand that came and brokered peace between the two nations and called for a referendum. So when we talk about international community, it's amazing. We had the crisis between the rebels of Kamer against our Juvenal Habyarimana in Rwanda. It was the AU that signed the Arusha Accord and brought peace there. That's one of the major crises that the AU has solved in Africa. We had a case in West Africa, Kmer against Adama Barrow in Gambia. It was ECOWAS that went there to resolve the crisis. I'm yet to see the international community. Francophonie has come, Commonwealth has come, United Nations has come, and they keep doing is condemning, and persons are dying, properties are destroyed, school is halted for past 5 years. I think we are getting frustrated. So we are trusting the coalition of dialogue and negotiation to come as a body to influence the restoration of peace and reconciliation, or whatever decision they would take, they should come on the table. We should not be looking at the international community. If the US take it upon themselves as individuals to initiate a kind of measure to solve the crisis, then good and fine. But looking upon all these organizations in the world, I think we are just rigmaroling. Yeah, we are rigmaroling, because the truth is, if we are very, very sincere, we go around the world. The FARC rebels in Colombia, they're the ones who choose. United Nations did not intervene there. The only place that the United Nations intervened was in the case of Barcelona, which was Catalonia trying to separate from Spain. They came there, the Catalonian parliamentarians decamped from the Spanish parliament and then came back and said they will not participate again. By the end of the day, what did the UN do? UN came there only to secure peace. There is crisis in Congo, there's crisis in Somalia, there's crisis in Central African Republic. UN vehicles are all over the continent Africa. We have not seen any practical solution profile to any of the crisis running in Africa. So what are we looking upon the UN or what? If United Nations as a nation wants to handle the crisis, okay, the Swiss came in with the Swiss dialogue. It has been neglected. I have realized that nations can easily solve problems in the world than these organizations of many nations. That's the problem.
Because some of the nations in question are also members of
the organizations. Yet, but they take up the responsibility, like New Zealand solving the Bougainville crisis against Papua New Guinea. It is a nation, but the UN went to that place and make that territory a UN trust territory. What are the solutions they brought? They cause more problems. So when I hear the international community, it rumbles my stomach. Yes.
Maître Bliga, je ne sais pas si vous avez les exemples de réussite des...
Non, il y en a pas. Il a cité l'exemple là où il y a un pays où les Nations Unies ont le plus grand contingent. C'est en RD Congo.
Yeah.
Dans le Tchoui, là-bas, au niveau de Bukavu et autres, la guerre continue. On a même décrété un état d'urgence. Actuellement, le président est là-bas. Il a confié le pouvoir aux militaires, mais jusque-là, ça ne va pas. Il y a les Nations Unies qui sont. Il y en a la MINUSCA qui est en Centrafrique. En Somalie, il y en a, ça ne donne rien. Non, mais moi, je suis un peu, excusez-moi, je suis un peu embêté. Je ne peux pas dire déçu. Parce que lorsque je vois le titre, Coalition pour le dialogue et les négociations, la médiation. Et j'ai entendu mes frères et mes sœurs tout à l'heure parler de ça. J'étais tellement content en me disant, voilà une solution interne. Voilà les frères qui disent que eux, ils vont aller vers leurs frères du nord-ouest, du sud-ouest, qui sont des belligérants, pour les amener à avoir une position commune. Et du coup, ils disent, non, nous ne sommes pas pour faire la médiation. C'est ce qu'elle vient de dire le professeur. Non, on n'est pas là pour faire la médiation, on veut juste se faciliter. Mais non, enlevez donc le terme de médiation dans votre coalition. Vous négociez, vous faites de la médiation, ça veut dire que vous êtes capable de pouvoir rassembler les serait-ce que nos frères du nord-ouest, sud-ouest. Et maintenant, le gouvernement de l'autre côté également pourra venir. Et je dis que les Camerounais peuvent. Cette histoire qu'on va toujours aller demander aux étrangers de venir régler nos problèmes, c'est pas bon. La seule chose que moi j'ai dit, l'intérêt, le travail de nos frères de la coalition, si vous avez accepté de faire ce travail, c'est la facilité par le nouveau le système, je veux dire, par la nouvelle administration de Joe Biden, dans ce sens que, avec les décisions, avec le fait qu'on a pu attraire des personnes en justice pour le fait de trafic d'armes au profit des sécessionnistes, va faire que tous ceux qui voulaient aider les sécessionnistes vont baisser les bras. Les sécessionnistes n'auront plus les moyens de pouvoir faire la guerre et seront donc plus aptes aujourd'hui à négocier. Alors que hier, lorsqu'ils étaient en position de force, pas en position de force, ils avaient les armes, ils pouvaient ne pas négocier. Aujourd'hui, les conditions sont plus remplies. De la même manière, j'ai dit, lorsque on dit, les États-Unis disent que même le gouvernement, même les gens du gouvernement, s'il y a même au sein du gouvernement des personnes qui ne font pas des efforts pour que la guerre finisse, et des sanctions peuvent être prises contre ces personnes-là, et avec une possibilité d'ailleurs de faire des sanctions plus fortes encore que le refus des visas, je dis que ça permet à tout le monde d'être prêt à négocier. Et cette négociation, dès lors qu'on est prêt à négocier, dès lors que le gouvernement camerounais a dit que la négociation n'est pas n'est pas statique, c'est-à-dire que c'est pas un événement comme on a vu le grand dialogue, mais un processus, c'est-à-dire qu'on peut continuer à négocier, pas forcément sous forme d'un grand dialogue. Quand on a voulu négocier avec Sissoko Ayou Tabé, c'était pas dans le cadre d'un grand dialogue. Oui. C'était après le grand dialogue, mais ça continuait. Donc on peut continuer à négocier pour peu qu'on identifie les personnes qui sont celles qui prennent les armes. Or, nous savons que dans les zones nord-ouest, sud-ouest, pratiquement chaque village ou chaque ville a un groupe des Amazoniens, une armée Amazonian Fighters, on les trouve un peu partout. Ce qui est important aujourd'hui, c'est que nous essayons, nous, les Camerounais, de tout ordre, essayons de dire à nos frères qui ont pris les armes, baissez vos armes, je veux dire, laissez vos armes, déposez vos armes. Au gouvernement, vous aviez dit que le dialogue était un processus, allons au dialogue. Ne vous dites pas que on a fait certes, vous avez fait un certain nombre de choses positives, mais comme la guerre continue, prenez acte du fait que ces choses n'ont pas permis que la guerre s'arrête et remodifiez votre position pour que les gens s'asseyent ou bien que les gens discutent pour que la guerre finisse. Moi, je pense que c'est ce qu'on peut faire.
Ok, c'est ce qu'on peut faire. Je prends quelques messages. Good, Mr. Leo, good evening. It is a Federal Republic of Cameroon. Without that, we are wasting our time. Charles is writing from Bali, that's in the northwest region. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The first dialogue failed because it was national. We believe multiple national can really help to bring peace. Mr. John is writing from Mamfe. Tiku Felix says, good evening, Mr. Leo. Equal representation in government offices and strategic positions will quench the fire to some level. Look at the first 4 positions in executive and phones this jump. The southwest and northwest regions talk of underdevelopment based on what they contribute. Okay. Tiku Felix Ndip writing from Aboya. Sir, what's the role of the upper and lower house in Cameroon in regards to the senseless war? Can love, truth, and justice not be applied for once? Good evening to everybody of good faith. I'm Emmanuel writing from Mbingo, that is in Boyo, division. Good evening, Mr. Leo. There can't be peace without justice. Vincent is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Vincent. Good evening, Leo and the crew. When we talk of dropping guns, we mean ceasefire, not that army should drop their guns because they are defending the state. Greetings to Apostle Ambi Valentine Ngwa. Charles is writing from Tico. Good evening, Mr. Leo. God bless your efforts. Kevin is writing from Kumbu. Greetings to you in the studio. My regards to my senior brother and friend Apostle Ambe. I do love the manner my brother is analyzing things based on the topic of the day. I feel that the U.S. should do more forceful in its sanctions against those who are inflaming the war. But to my humble opinion, I feel that the government should be more pressed to open up negotiations with the separatists because no separatist leader has refused to go for negotiations. Okay, you say you need Apostle Ambe's number. Professor Lilian, you are talking about international sanctions or implication. Let's take a scenario where there are sanctions on Cameroon, like was the case on Cuba and other nations, and then they say, okay, we are going to receive the sanctions, but we are not budging. What happens? People are going to continue to be dying.
Well, a nation can only resist sanctions for a while, but eventually they will have to bow. If we take even South Africa that resisted sanctions for decades, eventually they gave in and apartheid ended and Mandela was released from prison. So sanctions are what will bring the government of Cameroon to the negotiation table. They have been talking of negotiation for 5 years today. The government started by creating all kinds of commissions. They created the Bilingualism Commission, they created the ZD Act, and eventually Grand National Dialogue. And nothing is happening. The government cannot think that locally, nationally, this conflict can come to an end without an internationally mediated sanctions are a strategy by different governments to bring the government to talking, to a dialogue, which will be inclusive and sustainable. If we take, if we take the current sanctions that happened, the visa restrictions, immediately after those visa restrictions, we want to believe that it's no coincidence that the lawyer who was in prison and charged for terrorism was released, and that the conciliators were appointed by the President of the Republic of Cameroon. When the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation wrote the open invitation, the Parliament of Cameroon immediately reacted to that letter. It therefore means that sanctions are important in bringing conflicting parties to the table, especially when that party is a state party. Because the sanctions do affect the given multilateral and relations that they have with other states.
What is the guarantee that sanctions would bring peace? We are talking about peace and justice. And what is also the guarantee that an internationally mediated process is going to guarantee justice and peace if those that are involved in the conflicts don't see the need to stop hostilities?
It is true that a lot of those who are involved in the conflict do benefit as individuals in the conflict. There is merchandising in conflict situations where individuals benefit and do not allow for the war to end. But as states and institutions, it is not beneficial and sustainable for a conflict to be ongoing. The conflict in the southern Cameroon is bleeding the state of Cameroon. They have not acknowledged it. But given their debt level, we realize that they are really suffering enormously. But then, a military option cannot solve this conflict. Because it's been proven that military options are counterproductive, and only diplomacy can yield the fruits that we are looking for. In Papua New Guinea, there was, in Bougainville, there was a mediated action, and sanctions were imposed on the different governments. Across the world, only sanctions do bring governments to the table. They are very important. Very important. No government can resist sanctions.
Okay, but my last question to you, Mr. Mike Senze, is should we be talking about sanctions, where we know that when sanctions are meted on a nation, it is not the...
I can't hear.
Me neither.
Do you get me?
No audio.
Eli, I don't know what's happening. Do you get me, Mr. Mike?
No audio.
Ups. Maybe you touched something might
no audio.
Can we?
Oh, well, we can't hear if the technician is listening to us.
Right.
Mr. Mike, do you get me? Mr. Mike Senze. Okay. Okay. Technical issues there. I will come back to the studio to you, Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa. I was going to ask Mr. Mike that we are talking about sanctions, but when nations are sanctions, it's not the government officials that suffer, because the little that is available for the nation, they take care of themselves with. It is the population that suffers in case of any sanction.
Well, there are two kinds of sanctions. When they do individual sanctions, that is targeted sanctions. They can target certain individuals. That one is different. It depends the kind of sanctions they want to give. If they give a general sanction like what U.S. did to Sudan in 1994 by calling it a terror-sponsor nation, it was a crime committed by Umar el-Bashir, but the whole nation was taxed a terror-sponsor nation, thereby blocking investors from coming into the country to invest in the country, and people could not come also to buy out of the country.
Yeah, but when we talk of AGOA already, it is who suffers? It's the population that will suffer from that.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. So, that if there are two kinds of sanctions, like I tried to mention here, there are targeted sanctions. It depends the kind of sanction, because the AGOA stuff was during the Trump regime. What we have now is restriction of visas, and they cannot restrict visa to every Cameroonian. They are restricting visa to the persons involved specifically in the war. That's what called targeted sanctions. Now, it's different from when you are targeting or giving a nation, an entire nation, a name. Say Sudan is a terror-sponsor nation. Like what happened to Cuba. Cuba was sanctioned by America. Flights were not in America from Cuba, never leaving from Cuba to America. For years. It didn't touch Fidel Castro.
That's what I'm saying.
That was a sanction that affected the whole nation, not the case of somebody being targeted. Like the rebel leader that was targeted in Congo Democratic, the one that was targeted in Uganda is different. That's targeted sanctions. So if they are giving restrictions of visa, there are Cameroonians still traveling to America since they gave the visa restriction. It's not for every Cameroonian. People have gotten visa recently, others who had their visa that have equally traveled. I'm sure the visa restriction is targeted to particular individuals whose names are mentioned.
Mr. Mike, can you get me now? Hello? Hello, I don't know whether Mr. Mike is able to get me. Prof Lillian, are you there? Hello? Okay, just continue with your analysis. We are talking about sanctions. People should, because almost many persons are saying that Cameroon should be sanctioned, or whosoever should be sanctioned, but we should know that sanctions will fall squarely on the population.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that it depends the kind of sanction, because we have heard of visa restrictions. They did not restrict every Cameroonian from going to America. They are restricting the persons they seem or they believe are perpetrators of the war taking place in Cameroon within the government cycle and otherwise. So if at all is a visa sanction, is different. If they give the sanction that they gave to Cameroon, exempting it from AGOA, like what some did.
Mr. Mike is able to get it. Prof Lillian, are you there?
Yes, we can get you now, but we lost our audio for this.
Okay, Mr. Mike.
Hello?
Mr. Mike.
Okay,
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Mr. Now.
Yes, Mr. Mike, I'm getting to you now. You guys are looking.
He's gone again.
So you can't get me?
Hear you.
Prof, I'll ask you this question. What if the international community delays in coming in? Is there a plan B for the coalition? What is going to be the next move? Because what we've been getting from the international community for the past 3-4 years has been, we condemn, we urge both sides, we do this and that. What if the international community continue in same line?
Sorry, Mr. Kamer, I didn't pick up any audio, so you may want to refer to your question, please.
Are you getting me now? Hello?
I can't hear you.
Oops.
Mike, they can't hear you.
No, but I'm not muted, so there's no sound.
Yes, they don't hear us.
No, I can get you, Prof.
And we don't hear them.
And we don't hear them.
Definitely, something is not right somewhere. Apostle and Valentine Ngwa, you take this question. What if the international community takes so long to come in? What happens?
We can't hear you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know where the missing link is.
No, this.
Yeah.
If the international community takes so long to come in,
if the next 5-10 years is the same waiting on the international community, should Cameroonians not be thinking of how to solve this problem?
no, by then we'll be forced to solve the problem by ourselves, because they used to say only a mother has running stomach, everywhere is toilet. if we are caught up between the devil and the deep blue sea, we will learn how to solve our own problems, because we cannot keep on burying people every day, every year, and then we keep waiting for international community to come and solve our problems for us. If the international community delays, I'm sure by then everybody must have come to a position whereby they will decide by themselves if the thing will continue or not. I'm sure we have not been touched, both the government and the separatists. They've not been touched to the extent whereby they have to see a need to surrender. They have to see a need to abandon this senseless war. They have to see a practical reason to put an end to this mess. Because if they are not yet touched, one day it will touch them. And when it will touch them, they will see a need for a solution. Somebody used to be sick and they will give him tablets. He said, no, I don't want to drink tablets, it's bitter. The time comes when he's drinking the tablet and asking for more, because the sickness in his system is telling him that, my friend, if you don't drink the tablet, you will die. I'm sure we need to get to a position whereby nobody will tell us to drink the tablet. We will see the need to drink the tablet.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu, and those in the panel. Why do you think it is a white man that will solve our problem better than us blacks? The so-called coalition for dialogue should look at the possibility of working with us. They keep on blaming only the government. Mola Fakou is writing from Limbe. We are ruled by people who have no heart, and so all talk justice and peace is good, but the solution is to wipe away these people in power. Oui, Maître Biliga, si on attend toujours la communauté internationale, comme on a attendu, ça fait plus de 4 ans, ils ne viennent pas.
Mais nous avons dit que ça ne sert à rien. Nous disons que ça ne sert à rien. Si nous avons parlé des États-Unis, c'est parce que les États-Unis sont pratiquement plus ou moins impliqués dans ce conflit, dans ce sens que les États-Unis abritent des personnes qui sont impliquées dans le conflit du Nord et du Sud-Ouest, qui se réunissent, collectent de l'argent, achètent les armes et les envoient au niveau, en passant par le Nigeria. C'est pour cette raison que nous avons apprécié le fait que la justice américaine a pu intervenir, et en intervenant, elle va faire que ceux qui sont des radicaux vont assurer leur position, sachant qu'ils peuvent être arrêtés et mis en prison. Or, vous savez bien que les États-Unis, c'est pas comme chez nous. On vous donne 50 ans de prison comme un rien. Hein. On vous donne même 4 condamnations de 50 ans, 200 ans de prison. On vous les donne et vous ne sortez plus jamais. Donc, c'est une peur qui peut nous être favorable. Une peur imposée par un État différent de nôtre, un État étranger. De la même manière, nous l'avons dit, que si la cause viendrait du gouvernement et qu'il y a certaines personnes qui peuvent être sanctionnées d'une manière ciblée, ça peut avoir un impact, ça peut avoir un impact. Mais une intervention, qu'elle soit armée, qu'elle soit une simple intervention, des sanctions prenant tout le monde, c'est-à-dire globalisante, Ça, les personnes qui vont souffrir, c'est le bas peuple. C'est pas les dirigeants qui vont souffrir si on dit aujourd'hui qu'on prend des sanctions contre le Cameroun. C'est nous qui allons souffrir, nous tous. C'est là par ces personnes-là. Donc je pense que moi je suis contre l'intervention des travailleurs.
Mike, are you there now? Hello, Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you. Do you get me now?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I was asking about, since we are wrapping up with the program, what is the plan B for the coalition for negotiation, for dialogue and negotiation? Because from what I've gathered so far is that the international community should be involved in the mediation process. What if in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years the international community is still moving at a snail pace? Should you not also be envisaging different strategies of getting the people to solve their problems themselves?
Well, I just want to be very clear on when people talk about the international community, you know, we should be very specific about what we're talking about. Right?
Okay.
So, of course, we have the most consequential power in the world, the United States of America, paying attention to Cameroon, and Secretary Blinken has also indicated, at least during his confirmation hearings, that Cameroon is a top priority for him. Now, with that kind of attention from the United States, I think we're in a different space compared to other countries that, you know, may have had other experiences. So that's one thing. Now, with regards to the options that we have, yes, there are many options on the table. There are many tools that can be explored. But again, the key thing to keep in mind is, you know, we're not, you know, at the CDN, we're looking at these things differently, right? Because we have technocrats, we have people within the international system. There are a lot of Southern Cameroonians who know how these things work and influence the decision making at very consequential levels. So, I will not go into methods because again, this is it's a very fluid and volatile situation. But all I can tell you is that, you know, what came from Secretary Blinken in terms of visa restrictions is really, probably the lowest level tool that is available to make this happen. So the key thing is not to be focused on what other options are out there, but to understand the moment and recognize that there's a need for us to get to very substantive negotiations to get out of this.
Mr. Mike, moves from the U.S. could be also frightening. Because the U.S. might have learned from what happened with Libya. The U.S. might also have learned from what happened in Iraq to be more cautious when they intend meddling into internal affairs, because we must also establish the fact that Cameroon is very pivotal to the harmony that prevails in the Semak sub-region. The U.S. would not want to see.
Well, correct. But Mr. Kuhn, that is precisely why Cameroon is of interest to the United States.
Yeah.
Right. Cameroon is a very, very important player in terms of the geopolitical balance in the Gulf of Guinea. Now, what that does, and again, if you want to be objective about it and you don't look at this through, a nationalistic or an ideological lens, right? The posture of Cameroon is extremely consequential to the peace of that region. So to the extent Cameroon is neglecting that responsibility to actually get to peace, it raises the level of concern of the United States. And that is just common sense. Now we can have discussions around nationalism, etc., but there are bigger forces at play, and I'm pretty convinced that the people in Yaoundé recognize the importance of this. It will be in our interest to align ourselves with where the geopolitics is, to think about where we want to be 10, 15, 20 years, 50 years down the road, and make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Getting caught up in all these local debates that go against what are established norms internationally does not serve us, and that's, we're hoping to make a shift.
Okay, we're out of time, Mr. Mike. It was a pleasure having you on Prime Hour for the very first time. We hope you're going to be there next time when we come knocking.
The pleasure is all mine, Mr. Kum. I appreciate the hard work that you guys are doing. It's a great channel. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. And also to you, Professor Lilian, this is your second participation. Hope I'm going to have you soonest again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum. It was a pleasure interacting with you and with the Southern Cameroonian community. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. It's always a joy to be here.
Monsieur Siavo.
Yes, I want to apologize for the fact that I didn't express myself in English during this program. But what I wanted to say is that since I am not able to speak fluently in English, I can converse, I can hear, I can listen, yes, I can listen, I can write, I can read. But when I have to say something deeply, I need to speak in French. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We also want to thank you all who took time off to watch the program, the production team. We are immensely grateful. We want to just say a great night. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Years. Embrace HitMat's numerous professional programs from HND to BTech, BSc, and MBA in the schools of Business and Management Sciences, Engineering and Technology, and the School of Transport and Logistics. Embrace HitMat's professionalism, excellence, and consistency with solid mentorship from the University of Wamenda and the University of Boya. Embrace HitMat's skills, development, expertise, and career orientation via workshops and academic field trips. Be part of the HitMat family. Visit our Boya campus at Checkpoint Moliko and Douala campus at Carrefour Yoro, Jos, Bonamusari. Contact 683-70-1720. The Higher Institute of Business Management and Technology, the University Institute for Professionals.